When you are a child, you cannot process things. That is part of being a child. When you're older, you can reflect on your childhood and begin to process things. But when you are a child yourself, that's not an option. Children don't have that many options. By the fact they're just that, children. That doesn't mean, however, that a child cannot notice things. Now, a child can decide whether a child is going to admit it internally or avoid it. The same option an adult has. The difference is a child cannot oversee the consequences and the impact of them ignoring reality. The child cannot. So that's why it is adults who point out the consequence in reality. An adult sees that their behavior and their internal attitude has consequences, not only on themselves, also on others. So when a child decides to look away from something uncomfortable, it's understandable. It's a child. What else can you expect? But when an adult does it, it's not cute, it's not understandable, and it's not justified. You cannot expect a child to face hard realities or hard stuff reality. No. To expect that is ridiculous. But you should expect an adult to at least want to admit internally when something is wrong and be willing to process what is wrong and do something about it. You should expect that from an adult. Now, children have no choice but to either cope by escaping into activities or by acting out. Because what option does children have psychologically? They don't have any. So an adult who does not want to face things, but always want to hit the road and escape, that's not childish. Because children, even when they don't admit internally about something that's painful, they're at least willing to do other things in life. But adults don't even have this flexibility. When they decide to escape, they escape completely. So stop calling this escapism in adults childish. There's nothing childish about it. Because children only act in an escapism way out of necessity. For an adult, it's not a necessity. When an adult, it's just an open dysfunction. And here's another thing. You cannot process things in an environment that refuses to admit what is wrong. Now you have to get out of that environment before you can fully process things. Admitting when something is wrong or when something doesn't add up is one step. To process it means that you need to face the fact that it's not just you, the environment is toxic. But if the people in the environment don't want to admit it's toxic, they're hindering your recovery. So a child cannot be held responsible for their psychological state. Absolutely not. An adult at least has some influence upon their own psychological state, something a child does not have. So when you have an adult pretending like, oh, there's nothing I can do about anything, I'm sorry, but that's not true. That's devaluing yourself as a human being. And I will not get along with that. Now, as an adult, not every outcome in life is on you. Because there are also other human beings on the earth that affect you. Not every outcome in your life is because of you. There are also others affecting you, whether for good or for bad. But at least as an adult, you have some say or some influence on the outcomes. And you should take this influence, or as you say, this responsibility, to act not only in your own best interest, but also in the best interest of the community around you. That's how you are in harmony with other people. Understand this. When an adult refuses to be present in daily life, because a lot of people, they operate in the past. It's all about preserving values and norms that your parents or grandparents established. Now, if your parents or grandparents had good qualities, you can learn and adopt those good qualities. Nothing wrong with that. But you should operate in the now. Others are futuristic. They're focused on a future that they imagine. It's good to have imagination for the future. That's good. But realize you need to implement things today. And to implement things today means you to admit the challenges and the issues of today. You cannot get ahead anywhere in life, and you cannot be sane nor safe if you're not operating in today. Any adult that is in escapism is either meditating on the past or they are escaping in future projections. Even people who say, hey, I'm blunt, I'm keeping it true, I'm down to earth, especially people that are blunt are escaping. But how they escape sheet, they admit things in the present. Okay, they admit things in the present, but what are they actually doing about things in the present? No, they just wanna act out their frustration or their anger, and others just have to deal with it. They just express how they think and feel people have to take it because they're at least honest. No, they're not. Because they're not willing to participate in any long-term solution. Listen, the reason why so many of you, now if this message does not apply to you, it doesn't apply to you. I'm making this message for those whom it applies. If it doesn't apply to you, then it doesn't apply. Let me continue. The reason why so many of you face so many difficulties in life is not because of Satan, even though Satan was involved. It's not because of evil spirits. Yes, evil spirits are involved. And it's not even that much because how you were raised by your parents, even though there are parents who do a horrible job raising children. And it's not even because of your environment, even though an environment can make you sick. Now, there are external factors that influence you for the bad. That happens. Just like you can't credit yourself for every good quality you have, because those good qualities were shipped into you by other good people, the same way you cannot be to blame for every bad thing that happens in your life. That's not possible. That's not possible. Why is it that when it comes to good things, you should always credit the environment, but when it's bad, it's all on you? That's not realistic. But at least you must be willing to admit the obvious. Now, and that is the issue. Too many of you refuse to admit the obvious. I'm not talking about admitting it to other people. I'm talking about admitting it internally to yourself. Too many of you are not willing to admit the obvious. For example, let's say that your parents or your aunties, uncles, or maybe the other adults around you, I'm talking about when you were growing up, they were quite blunt towards you. They just said what they thought. They didn't even consider how they communicate with you. Just blurt out things. Whether it hurt your feelings or not didn't matter. They always said, at least I'm honest, I say what I think. Or if they didn't want to hear something, you would just walk away or pretend like you weren't there. But then you began to imitate their behavior towards them. You walked away when you want to hear something. Or you just said what you thought without considering them. Oh, but now it's a problem. Now they say you need to learn some manners. You shouldn't be rude. You shouldn't do this and that. Hold on a minute. Why is it okay for them to ignore you? Pretend like you're not around. Pretend like they didn't hear you. Why is it okay for them to talk however they want, however they see fit? When you do it, it's an issue. And when you look at those people that did this towards you, are they doing the same thing towards everyone? No. Because towards the employer at work, they're not doing it. Towards the police officer in the street, they're not doing it. In a courthouse, they wouldn't even dare to do it. Aha! So why are they doing it with you? Because because you cannot retaliate against them, nor put them in their place. A police officer can, an employer can fire them, and a judge can put them in prison. Oh, so they're just narcissistic then. I'm not saying they're by definition narcissists, but at least they're narcissistic. It's a one-way street. That means those people are not good people. I'm not saying they're evil. They may not be evil, but at least they're not good. Because nobody in their right mind would act in such a way. Nobody in their right mind would. Even a child can understand that eventually this is not going well if you act so inconsiderate towards other people. But here's the thing. Those blunt and direct people, they're only blunt and direct towards people that can't fight back against them. Because anyone with a leverage over them, they suddenly know how to behave. So they're just cowards. That's what they are. They're cowards. Admit the obvious. But how many of you excused your mom, your dad, or excuse your older brother or sister, or you excuse the teacher in school, or you excuse the professor in university, or you excused maybe even your spouse or your family-in-law? How many of you made excuses? Because it was more comfortable to make excuses. It was easier, at least for the moment, it was easier to make excuses than it made this individual doesn't add up. Well, let me tell you, the moment you refuse to admit the obvious to yourself, you set yourself up. Because listen to me, if someone is willing to go against reality like that, because look, you're not obliged to engage every conversation, especially if the conversation is negative. You're not obliged to engage every human being, especially if the other human being is dangerous or other human being has no good intention with you. But you are not entitled to ignore the existence of other human beings. You're not. If someone is a narcissistic stalker, if someone is a reprobate with bad intentions, then you avoid any contact. But if someone is not dangerous, you have no business just pretend like they don't exist. What the heck is that? Because if others do it towards you, you wouldn't take it. Because think about it. If you feel like you're entitled to ignore other people's existence, that means that when you're on the road driving your car and there's someone's crossing the road, you can say, well, they're not around, and you can just continue to drive. Hit them with the car and continue. Because to you, they don't matter. Or let's say you see a child with blue spots. You can say, well, I didn't choose to have children, or it's not my child, so it's not my responsibility. But making excuses, no, you saw that the child was endangered and you didn't report it. So you are contributing to evil. Think about it. People that think they have a right to ignore the existence of other human beings just because they want to escape. Such people are not only are they unstable, they're also delusional because they seriously expect that they can get away with this. And that's where the problems begin. Too many of you don't recognize such disturbing people because you keep calling them honest. They're not honest. Bluntness, directness are not the same as honesty. Honesty means that you're willing to admit your own situation as well as your role and role of other people, and you're willing to contribute for better for everyone. That's honest. That's realistic. If someone doesn't have this quality, then they're just blunt and direct, but they're not honest. Stop calling it honest. By you calling it honest, you're putting a positive label on something that's actually harmful. And that's what a lot of you are doing. You refuse to admit the obvious. Now, that the other individual is toxic or bad or evil or whatever, that's them. But you have to face what they are and learn to deal with them in a safe and practical way. That does not mean you approve how they are. Doesn't mean you endorse and not support it. But as long as they are in that negative state, you need to admit they are in a negative state, so I'm going to deal with them. They have no right to remain in a negative state. They are obliged to look for solutions and to improve. But if they go against reality, then they're also putting aside their obligation towards the community to improve and be better. Simple as that. And listen to me, an individual who's willing to just discard you, block you, unfriend you, ignore you, whatever, just because you want to escape, not because there's an actual good reason for it, such an individual, anything is on the table, even murder. Now, they may not murder you, take your physical life themselves, but they will set you up for failure, or they may set you up for destruction. They may give you wrong advice, or they may push you in the wrong direction just to get yourself killed. For example, maybe you have a 9-to-5 job, and maybe your spouse can clearly see that the job is exhausting you, but your spouse doesn't even want to admit her own issues, or if it's a man, his own issues. So your spouse may encourage you to keep hanging on at work so it will get better, even though your spouse can clearly see nothing is improving. Here's the thing. The spouse wants to get rid of you. But if the spouse ghosts you, it's going to look bad on him or could look bad on her. If they divorce you, the way the common way, then they need to say why you want to divorce. And there is no actual reason for them to divorce. And if they just divorce you just because they want to escape, it's not going to look good on them. Any future partner they get involved with will be how to say, a bit distant towards them. So them wanting to leave you is wrong on their part because they have no reason to leave you. Because if they want to leave you, they need to admit that they had the wrong expectations about you. And now the wrong expectations of them don't work out. Now they want to leave. They don't want even to face that they had wrong expectations when it comes to sexual relationships or whatever. They just want to escape. But now you are in the way for them to escape. So what's going to happen? In this case, they can't just click on friend, block, or whatever. You can't just ignore you. They have to deal with you. So they may not take your life directly, but you're supposed to tell you keep working. And eventually, you end up having a mental breakdown. And now that you have a mental breakdown, now the spouse will file for divorce saying, oh, my spouse neglected me. She was working all the time, or he was working all the time. While behind the scenes, they were the ones pushing you to work all the time. They were the ones saying, I support you, honey, I support you there. Why were they doing that? They set you up to get the mental breakdown while you thought that your best interest. You know why? Because they wanted to escape. And then when you have a mental breakdown, they file for divorce, they play the victim, and they're gone. And don't think that if you have children with them, that at least going to be better because there are children around. Listen, someone who's willing to put reality aside, it's when reality itself aside. So your children together are also part of reality that they put aside because it's all about them escaping. They're disturbing individuals. Or let's say now that you, let's say you don't want contact with your parents anymore because you realize these people are toxic. Now, if you admit, if you have toxic parents, it doesn't apply to everyone because not everyone has toxic parents. If your parents are toxic, if your parents don't want to improve, and you realize, you know what, these people have harmed me, but I'm not going to allow them to continue to harm me anymore, you're doing the right thing. You comply with your own well-being. But you standing up to your parents saying enough's enough, it makes other people look bad who enabled your parents to misbehave towards you. It makes your good action for yourself makes others look bad. So now you'll have people that will tell you, man, please reconcile with your parents. One day they may die, and then it's going to be hard because they're gone. But here's the thing, they never turn around. What if you die one day suddenly? It's no. Your parents neglected you, but it's sad because they may die one day, and then you can't make it up with them. What if you die today and they can't make it up to you? Why is always you need to consider them? So you may have relatives trying to push you to get back involved with your parents. Why? Because they are embarrassed and humiliated because you took the right step in life. Because if you admit your parents were toxic, and you're now in therapy for how they treated you, everyone's going to ask, but hold on a minute, where were your aunties? Where were your uncles? Where were the friends of your family? Where was the church? Where were all these people? It's going to look bad on them. So they want you to remain in a toxic situation so that they are at ease. And if you don't get along with their bad advice, they'll begin to conduct smear campaigns against you or whatever. Let's say you became a drug addict, also based on being neglected by the community. The moment you recover from a drug addiction, people can't look down on you anymore because you're working on a solution. But here's the thing, those same people that look down on you because you were a drug addict, they have a lot of issues in their life they don't want to fix. So you facing the fact that you're addicted to drugs, that's a courageous thing. That's something honorable. But look at this. If you admit that you had a drug addiction, you also let the mental dominate. How do they end up a drug addict? How do they end up in such a situation? They have to admit the community failed you. So when you recover from a drug addiction, sometimes the community will send people to bring you back into drug addiction, to make you fall back into using drugs. Why? Because they don't want you to improve. You improving makes them look bad. Listen to what I'm saying here. Many of you need to stop making excuses for people who refuse to comply with justice. You have to stop sticking at the surface of things. Look deep into this, look beyond the present circumstances. Look at the setting. Look, let's say you have an old man in a nursing home crying because none of his children want to visit him. And he keeps complaining, I did everything for my children, now they abandon me. If you only look at that surface situation, you'll see, okay, you have an old man over here, he's sad, and you see it's a fact none of his children are willing to visit him. Okay, based on that circumstance, you may develop a disdain towards the children of the man. Thinking, how can you do this to your parent? Your parent did so much for you, and now you abandon them? That's quite selfish. Well, hold on. Let's look at the other side. Why are the children not coming to visit their parent? Why did the children dump their parent in a nursing home? And then you hear stories which are confirmed that this parent was quite narcissistic and abusive while the children were younger. Or some of them just walked away from the family, didn't even raise the children. Aha! Now you understand why this man is all alone in a nursing home. Of course, the man in a nursing home is not going to tell you the full facts, because he will only tell you what he thinks will benefit him, namely getting sympathy from you. Because here's the thing, if he neglected his own children throughout the decades, but it's only now with his consequences, so-called has remorse, he doesn't really have remorse, just upset, has to deal with consequences. That means that he's not a safe, pleasant individual to deal with. But he wants to appear like a pleasant and safe individual, so he will distort facts. He will not give you misinformation. He will give information in such a way that makes him look good, by omitting all the other facts that would make him look bad. He may admit, okay, I make mistakes here and there, but he will never admit what the mistakes are. He will remain vague about it. Because if he would spell out the mistakes that he just spoke about, then you realize, hold on a minute, it doesn't add up. A lot of people only look at the surface of things in daily life, and they act based on superficial knowledge. Stop operating on superficial knowledge. Look into the setting, look into the situation. Look at the bigger picture. Too many of you just want to be left alone. You just want to walk away and be at ease. Life does not work that way. And listen, if you know people who are blunt and direct and want to be left alone, listen, leave those people alone, because those people are not safe to be around. Here's the thing. There are so many factors in life that bother them. Whether it's the government, whether it's corrupt police officers, or whether it's parents who want to repent, or whatever, there are so many things bothering them. Why is it that they choose you to be upset with? Why is it that despite all the other factors in daily life that bother them, they want to be upset with you? That's because they perceive you as an easy target to relieve themselves. That's why. They don't want to face the unrest on the inside, so they want to project it on you and say, I don't like you, stay away from me, just to feel like they are in charge. Oh, but listen to me. People like that will tell you to leave them alone or will take it out on you. The moment you leave them alone and you move on and you're better off than them, it's going to backfire on them. Because everyone's going to say, hold on a minute. You are talking shit about Rashid all the time. But look at Rashid. Rashid's doing well in life now, far better than you. And you keep on complaining. But you pretend like Rashid was bothering you. It makes them look bad. So listen. When people act out against you, and tell it to your face you don't like it, all that, and you leave them alone, the moment you do better in life, they will either try to fake repenting to come back to you. Why? Just so they can sabotage you, because you're doing better without them. After they discard you, after they block you or unfriend you, it makes them look bad. If you doing the same or worse, they're fine, because then they can use that as an excuse. So just being polite, all that won't work. Look, people that are willing to select you as a dump site so that they can escape, those people, they need to be shut down. I'm not talking about taking their life. No, they have to be shut down. The only way you can shut them down is on a spirit level. On a spirit level, you need to enforce decrees and declarations on them, and you have to avoid any deeper interaction with those people. Listen to me. If someone is not willing to deal with daily life, they insist on escaping, eventually they will end up in circumstances and situations where they can't just walk away. What, for example, they have a job because they need to pay rent, or they're married, or whatever. Remember the examples I gave before of that one spouse wanted to escape and trick the other spouse in overworking, get a mental breakdown, and now he or she is using that as an excuse for a divorce. You have a lot of people like that. Not everyone will flat out pick up a knife and stab you because they want to get rid of you. Some people will pretend to be on your side just to hinder you. Because if they leave you, if they discard you, or if they push you away, if they burn bridges with you, if they burn bridges with you, that means you're now freed from their toxicity. And you being free from their toxicity means that you're better off. So some of them will even go so far that they will pretend like you're missing out on something when they leave you. Don't fall for it. A lot of toxic people are putting out an image out there to convince you that you'll miss something without them. Don't fall for it. Because they want you to chase them so they can play like, you see, I'm being stalked, I'm being harassed. No, don't fall for that. The moment they burn bridges with you and you move on and you end up better, I can guarantee you, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but there comes a point that you doing better in life is going to bother them. And they will either try to come back into your life to hinder you, or from a distance, they will try to sabotage you one way or the other. Again, not everyone has the courage to be so impulsive by just killing someone, but they will do whatever they can indirectly to hinder you and to take your life. Even if it means putting you in prison, even if it means disabling you, whatever, I'm telling you, there are disturbing people out there who just don't want to face anything. Listen, I know this video is quite long, but I want you to understand this. You have to admit the obvious. If you don't admit the obvious to yourself, you're setting yourself up to be harmed by toxic and dangerous people. Now, those dangerous and toxic people have no right to harm you or to take advantage of you. But neither do you have the right to put yourself in a position where they can easily take advantage of you. They have no right to take advantage of you and to abuse you. They don't. But you also don't have the right to neglect yourself. Because by neglecting yourself, you're also neglecting the people around you. By you neglecting yourself, you make yourself an easy prey, an easy target. So by you neglecting yourself, you're actually motivating evildoers. By you neglecting yourself, you're also motivating evildoers and toxic people. You have no right to motivate evil or toxic people. So that's why you're not allowed to neglect yourself. And that's what I'm telling you. Stop neglecting yourself. Start admitting the obvious to yourself. You don't have to admit it towards other people. You don't have to run your mouth about it, but just admit the obvious. So many people out there who are dead now would even live longer, or they would still be alive today if they just would have faced the obvious. Face the obvious, people. It is life-saving, not only for yourself, but also for others. Because remember, it's not just you that will have to deal with the consequences of your attitudes. Your attitudes and your behaviors will not only affect you, but also other people. So you admitting the obvious to yourself is life-saving both for you and for everyone you're involved with. You owe it both to yourself and to other people to be the best human being you can be. That's how you glorify the Heavenly Father. Well, that's it for now. Keep on agreeing with Christ and be at peace.